Hey everybody, what is up and welcome to my channel. It's a Hardback Life. My name is Jordan, and today we're going to be talking about my wrap-up video, and it's going to consist of March, April, and May, because those are the last few months that I've really been reading, and plus I started my booktube channel in April, so it makes a lot more sense to do it that way. And of course I didn't do a video wrap-up for the end of April, so there you go. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. These books, I'm going to go in order from what I've read in the past months. And by the way, there's not a whole lot of books. There's a total of 14 that I've read this year so far. So don't get scared. So let's get started. So the first couple books I read was a duology, the Warcross duology. Here's the books Warcross and Wildcard by Marie Lu. This is a different kind of series for Marie Lu. This is a sci-fi. She usually does dystopian, but yeah, this is sci-fi. I actually found out that the author has a background in gaming, like she worked for a gaming company or something. So yeah, that was an interesting thing to find out. So we have a girl named Amika Chen, and by the way, the story is set in New York and Tokyo. And there's this game called Warcross, which is basically a virtual reality game that's basically all over the world, and it's like capture the flag. And Amika Chen as a bounty hunter, and she captures those who the police, those criminals that the police can't get to, and then she obviously hands them over to the police, and then she collects her money, her bounty. But that hasn't been working out for her lately. And one day, she decides she and her roommate both go on to the game Warcross to watch the final game. And there's this artifact in the game that if Amika took it, she realizes she'd get a lot of money and be able to, keep living in her apartment. But she accidentally glitches herself in the game, and when she does that, she not only, like I said, she not only glitches herself, but when she glitches herself, she exposes herself to everybody watching the game, everybody who's in the game, and because she glitches herself in the game, people want to know who she is, and she, basically kind of gets in trouble. And what happens is the creator, Hideo Tanaka, wants to meet her. He calls her, wants to meet her. He flies her to Tokyo, Japan, where he lives, and he basically asks her to work for him and find out who's been doing illegal dealings and placing illegal bets in the game of Warcross, and so the whole first book sets that up, and she figures it out. It's a whole crazy journey, though, and it sets up the plot for the second book, which is my favorite in the duology, Wildcard. This goes off of this one, and it just explores what's been happening in Warcross, and it goes on a deeper level. It's really good duology, you guys. Definitely should pick it up. Next book I read in March, so I read those two in March. I also read this, Chain of Gold. It is the first book in the Last Hours trilogy by Cassandra Clare, and also a sequel series to The Infernal Devices. This book follows the children of the characters in the Infernal Devices series. And this is Cordelia Carstairs on the cover. She's my favorite, female character that Cassandra Clare has ever written. And Cordelia comes to London because her father has brought the family name Carstairs and put it in shame. London to find a suitor on her mother's insistence, and just save the family name. While she's there, though, a lot of stuff happens. There is what was once a demon-free peace, peace, happiness, was once a demon-free zone, now becomes flooded with demons who start attacking them, and people in the Shadowhunter start getting sick because of the demon attacks and such. And it sets up a whole lot of crazy stuff happening from there. Like I said, this is the first book. It came out in March. And Chain of Iron, Chain of Thorns is the next book. I can't remember which one. But those are the next two books anyway, coming out within the next couple of years. Definitely a worthwhile read. But if you're going to read this, I would suggest picking up Infernal Devices so that you are not confused, because it mentions a lot of stuff from that prequel, or from that previous series. And after that, April, I read so I'll reread, kind of. So I read the Artemis Fowl series. I've already originally read books 1 through 5 when I was a kid, and then I just never finished it just because, I don't know, stuff happened. But then I decided to pick the book series back up because the movie was coming out, and there's a total of 8 books. So in April, I read Artemis Fowl, The Arctic Incident, which is book 2, Artemis Fowl, The Eternity Code, which is book 3, Artemis Fowl, The Opal Deception, which is book 4. I seem to have misplaced book 5. I don't know what and then in April, I ended with Artemis Fowl and The Lost Colony. And Artemis Fowl, by the way, is about a 12-year-old criminal mastermind, and aka genius, who discovers the world of fairies, and the human and the fairy world collides, and he and Captain Holly Short, who is a fairy, and several other characters in the series end up saving the world many times. Such a good book series. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it. Oh, yeah, and then May, this month, I read the rest of the series. So I read The Time Paradox, which is book number 6. The Atlantis Complex, which is book number 7. And then the final book in the series, Artemis Fowl and The Last Guardian. Such a good book series, you guys. I'm not kidding you. Definitely one you should definitely pick up. And the last few books I read so far, I picked up my dad's book. Okay, so this is The Adventures of Temp and Junebug. This is a collection of short stories written by my dad, James Ricks Jr. It's about his life growing up with his nephew, who was actually the same age as him. His sister, he had an older sister who had a kid around the same time my dad was born. So it's just a collection of short stories about my dad and his nephew's life when they were growing up in Arizona, which is where I live. And then the next book I read, I was going to reread this series just because I had planned to reread it after I read it the first time, which I read the first time back in 2008. And that is the Twilight series. Now, this is the only series that I have read that has a lot of romance in it. I mean, there's romance and fantasy a lot, but this particular series has a lot of romance. And this is like a hit or miss series for a lot of people. Very problematic, but the second time I've read it now, the first book anyway, I liked it a lot better. I appreciated it a lot more, and I have now hopped off the bandwagon of hating it, because it's actually not horrible. So, yeah, I read this, and I'm actually going to read New Moon in June. I'm reading one book a month because Stephenie Meyer announced that she is releasing Midnight Sun after all these years. So I'm kind of curious about that. And also, Kat at Paperback Dreams is doing a readathon for Twilight series where they reread it. Her and Chandler Ainsley, and then I forget the other booktuber's name, but they're going to be doing a live channel or live chat every month where they talk about each book, and I will probably link the video for the Twilight chat, but it's going to be every 3 weeks from the last video that they do. So I think New Moon will be middle of June is when they talk about it, but I will link the video in the description below. Alright, and the last book I read in May, oh god, This Is Where It Ends. This Is Where It Ends is about a school shooting that takes place in 54 minutes. It is really, really good, in my opinion. It's very realistic, too, and very important that this book is, out there, because we've had a lot of school shootings in the last several years, and the fact that I have not really seen it in books, talked about, is, to me, a huge issue. And I'm glad it's being addressed here, and, I actually bought this book in 2019 with the intention of reading it in 2019, but that never happened. But I'm glad I read it now. It's so good. It's so chilling. And it's also very graphic, so if you don't like reading about, violence and stuff like that kind of happening in books, then this book is not for you. But I definitely recommend it. I gave this book 5 stars. It's by Marie Niekamp. I can't pronounce her name right, but yeah. Oh, I totally forgot the authors of the other books. But yeah. So Marie Lu wrote the Warcross duology. Cassandra Clare wrote Chain of Gold. Just in case I didn't mention the authors. James Ricks, who is my dad, wrote Misadventures of Temma Junebug. And then Owen, I know there's an E, but he's Irish, and that's how they say Owen. Owen Colfer wrote Artemis Fowl series, which is an 8-book series. Stephenie Meyer wrote Twilight, which I'm sure we all know. And then, like I said, Marika Niekamp wrote This Is Where It Ends. I hope you guys like this video. Please subscribe, and I'll be back with my June TBR, hopefully pretty soon, because, I mean, it is June now. So, yeah. Anyway, guys, see you later.